There's a guy, maybe from school, maybe from work, maybe just from your circle, and something about him doesn't add up. He's not doing anything special. He's not the best looking. He's not the richest. He doesn't have the sharpest lines or the most confident walk. But every time you look up, there's a girl trying to get his attention, texting him first, showing up where he is, finding reasons to be around him. And you're standing there thinking, what does he have that I don't? Because you've been doing everything the advice tells you to do. You're attentive, you're available, you show her you care, you make her feel important, you check in, you follow up, you put in the work, and somehow she's still looking across the room at him. I need you to understand something today. And I mean, really understand it, not just nod along and forget it by tomorrow. Because this one thing, when it actually lands, changes the entire way you move through life. She is not chasing him because of what he does. She is chasing him because of what he doesn't do. He doesn't chase her. He doesn't rearrange his life around her schedule. He doesn't text twice when she doesn't reply. He doesn't dim himself down to make her comfortable. He doesn't perform. He doesn't audition. He doesn't sit around waiting to be chosen. He is already chosen by himself, and that energy is so rare, so unfamiliar to most women, that it becomes magnetic without him lifting a single finger. Let me explain why this works on a deeper level, because I don't want you to just copy the surface behavior. I want you to actually get it. Women, whether they'd say it out loud or not, are constantly reading the energy underneath your actions, not your words, not your looks, your energy. And your energy tells a story. It tells her whether you believe in your own value or whether you're secretly hoping she'll confirm it for you. When you text her 3 times without a reply, the story your energy tells is, I'm not sure I'm enough, so I need a response to feel okay. When you cancel your plans to free up time she never asked for, the story is, your attention is worth more than my own commitments. When you agree with everything she says, even when you don't, the story is, I'd rather lose myself than risk losing you. And here's the painful part. She's not consciously thinking any of this. She's just feeling it, that low hum of anxiety coming off you, that invisible desperation underneath the kindness, and her body responds to it before her mind even registers what's happening. She just feels less attracted, less curious, less pulled toward you, and she can't even explain why. But flip it, completely flip it. The man whose story says, I like myself, I have a life I'm building, I find you interesting, but I don't need you to complete anything in me. That man walks into a room and everything shifts slightly, not loudly, not dramatically, just a subtle change in the air. And she feels it and she starts wondering about it, and wondering is where attraction is born. Think about anything in life that has ever made you want it more. The job you weren't sure you'd get, the friend who seemed too cool to care, the opportunity that wasn't guaranteed. There's something about uncertainty, about the possibility that it might not happen, that makes desire flare up in a way that certainty never can. Certainty kills craving. Uncertainty feeds it. That's not manipulation. That's not a game. That's just human psychology working exactly the way it was built to work. And the man who understands this doesn't play with it to hurt anyone. He just lives in alignment with it naturally by having an actual life outside of her. Now, I want to speak directly to the part of you that's going to resist this, because there's a version of you right now thinking, but I genuinely like her. I'm not going to fake indifference. That's not who I am. And I respect that. I really do. But here's what I want you to hear. There is a massive difference between genuine indifference and grounded self-possession. I'm not telling you to stop caring. I'm telling you to stop needing. Caring is beautiful. Caring is human. Caring is what makes a real connection real. but needing her to reply, needing her to choose you, needing her approval to feel settled in your own chest. That's where it goes wrong, because the moment her response to you becomes the thing that determines how you feel about yourself, you've handed her a level of power over your inner world that you should never give anyone. Not her, not anyone. When your peace lives inside you, when it doesn't depend on whether she texts back or laughs at your joke or introduces you to her friends, something extraordinary happens. You become unshakable. And unshakable men are the rarest thing on earth, and the rarest things are always the most desired. So what does this actually look like in practice? Because I know this can sound like philosophy without a landing strip. It looks like having a full day that doesn't include checking your phone for her name. It looks like having your own goals so locked in that a conversation with her adds to your day instead of being the highlight you were waiting for. It looks like responding when you genuinely have a moment instead of the second you see her message, not because you're playing it cool, but because you were actually in the middle of something. It looks like having opinions she doesn't share and holding them calmly instead of folding immediately to keep the peace. It looks like leaving a conversation while it's still good instead of milking it until it runs dry. All of these things taken together build a picture, and the picture they build is a man who is already okay, a man who isn't arriving at her doorstep emotionally empty, holding out a cup and hoping she'll fill it, a man who comes already full and is simply inviting her to enjoy the overflow. And that it is the man women chase, not because he's cold, not because he's withholding, but because being around him feels different. It feels stable. It feels like there's something solid under her feet instead of shifting sand. And women are drawn to that stability the way you're drawn to warmth on a cold night. It's not a choice, it's an instinct. Let me tell you something about the conversations that come from this place versus the conversations that come from neediness, because the difference is massive and it shows up in ways you wouldn't expect. When you're talking to her from a place of need, your sentences end slightly upward like questions, even when they're statements. You're checking for reactions. You're adjusting your story mid-sentence based on how her face looks. You laugh a beat too quickly at things that aren't even that funny because you want the interaction to feel good and you're not sure it does. You fill silences desperately because silence feels like rejection and rejection feels unbearable. But when you're talking from a place of fullness, silence doesn't scare you. You let it breathe. You look at her without needing the look to mean anything. You say what you actually think and you let it land without chasing it with a safety net. You're genuinely curious about her because you're not too busy managing her impression of you. You listen deeply in a way that makes her feel like she's the only person in the room. And here's the wild part, that kind of listening, that unhurried, full presence, it's more intimate than anything else you could do. It makes her feel seen, and being truly seen by a man who clearly doesn't need anything from you is one of the most disarming experiences a woman can have. She starts opening up in ways she doesn't even expect. She starts trusting you in ways that don't have a logical explanation. She starts wondering about you when you're not there because you didn't chase the depth, you just created the space for it. Here's what I also want to say, and this part is important. None of this works if it's a performance, if you're doing all of this strategically, counting the hours before you reply, manufacturing a fake busy life, pretending to have passions you don't actually have. She will feel the inauthenticity underneath it. Women are too emotionally intelligent to be fooled by a costume for long. This has to be real. And the only way it becomes real is if you actually invest in yourself, not for her, for you. The gym isn't a backdrop for your Instagram. It's something you do because you respect your body. The career you're building isn't a talking point to seem impressive. It's a life you're genuinely proud of. The friends you invest in, the skills you develop, the time you spend alone getting comfortable with your own company, none of that is strategy. It's identity. And identity is what she falls for, not your tactics, not your lines, not your carefully timed responses, who you actually are when there's nothing to perform and no one watching. Because at some point, the conversations get long enough and honest enough and comfortable enough that the mask comes off, whether you want it to or not. And the man standing underneath it better be worth the wait. He better be real. He better be solid. He better be someone who has put in the quiet, unglamorous work of actually becoming someone. That's the long game. That's the thing nobody talks about because it's not quick enough and it doesn't fit on a thumbnail, but it's the only game that actually works. And it's the only version of this that you can sustain without exhausting yourself because you're not maintaining a character. You're just being yourself, and being yourself, the real, grounded, purposeful version of yourself never gets tiring. Because the truth is, the man women can't stop thinking about isn't a mystery. He's not a puzzle or a player or someone withholding just to keep her interested. He's just a man who decided at some point that his own life was worth building, that his own peace was worth protecting, that his own presence was worth developing. And in doing all of that for himself, he became exactly what she was looking for without ever trying to be. Stop looking for the trick. Stop looking for the line or the move or the right time to text. Start looking inward. Start building something inside yourself that you'd want to come home to. Because when she looks at you and feels that solidity, that calm, that quiet confidence of a man who is genuinely okay, she won't be able to explain why she wants to be around you. She'll just know that she does. And that's the only kind of attraction worth having, the kind that doesn't need to be manufactured, the kind that just exists because you do. If something in this hit you in a way you weren't expecting, I want to hear about it. Drop it in the comments. Tell me what clicked. Tell me what you're carrying that you're ready to let go of. Because the guys who are honest enough to say it out loud are the ones who actually change.